Alright, welcome back ladies and gentlemen. This is Luke from Guild Umbra. In this video we're going to continue on with our Engineer DPS. We're going to talk a little bit about single target builds and multi-target builds, specifically for endgame. I might, in this video, I still haven't decided, talk a little bit about a leveling build. And again, I might do that in another build, or in another video rather. But before we jump into abilities, let's talk a little bit about the Engineer. In the current state of the game, it seems as if the Engineer was one of the lower DPS classes, but as I've watched them and watched them, they Carbine has taken notice and has really brought them into their own DPS wise, given them a couple abilities to bring them back, to the fold, so to speak, that the other DPSers do. Anyway, what is it? It's a ranged DPS class with the ability to have bots present. You can only have 2 bots up at one time, and what you have is 2 stances. One I talked about in the tanking builds. It was mode provoke. Since this is a DPS build, we're going to be talking more about the other stance, which is mode eradicate. Excuse me. What it does is passively, when you're in this stance, increases your damage by 35%, while decreasing all your resistances by 7%. It also has an active. When you activate it, it's a 10-second duration. Basically what happens is you gain 10 volatility per second. It also, upon activation, does a take damage AoE on 3 enemies in range of you. So pretty cool innate. The cooldown on it is 2 minutes, so somewhat of a longer cooldown, but it's something else we have in our arsenal. So let's dive right into the abilities. Again, this is going to be a build that is mainly focused around doing the most single target damage I can. So keep that in mind. First ability is Quick Burst. It's an on-proc ability. So in other words, I have to have a crit take place in one of my other abilities or attacks in order for this to be available. It's a small conal AoE, and it's off the global cooldown, so I can use it anytime I choose, as long as I'm not casting an ability like for example, electrocute. When I cast that ability and it's ticking, if this procs, I can use it without it interrupting electrocute's cast. Okay, so pretty nifty ability. The tier upgrades are crap, but it's still a decent enough ability to be, in my opinion, allowed into our limited action set. Artillery bot. This is our first bot. You pop it out, he does physical damage, but he also has an ability that is called Barrage. It does kind of AoE damage, and it can hit up to 10 foes within 10 meters of the targeting field. So, it's not a bad AoE ability. It also doesn't do bad damage. The one complaint a lot of people had with it was boss mechanics, and bosses can just about one-shot it due to its low health. But this is probably going to be changed at some point to where the bosses cannot hurt your bot. So you can always keep it up. So anyway, moving on. Bioshell. This is our debuffer. It's similar to the debuffer that the medics have. Except it's more of a cast, whereas that one for the medics was an instant cast. So, it's 2-second gas, fires a projectile. It's a line telegraph with a circle on the end of it. And it either hits, the enemy, it hits the closest enemy, basically. Um, but upon detonation, it deals physical damage, applies an expose, generates 30 volatility, and debuffs the enemy that it hit technology resistance by 15% for 11 seconds. It does generate threats, so keep that in mind. You don't want to piss off tanks too much, but it's also a very good ability in my opinion. So I'm not even sure if that generates threat is accurate, to be honest with you, because it seems like last time I played the engineer, I don't recall seeing that on their tooltip in game. So anyway, moving on. Boltcaster. This is an excellent single target spell. It fires 7 shells that deal physical damage to one foe. So 7 times whatever that damage is, yeah, you get the idea. It's a lot of damn damage. So pretty sweet. Let's talk about tier abilities. Tiers, why we're here. I went with the tier 4 artillery bot because the tier 4 grants yourself and artillery bot an empower, which increases critical hit chance by 6.5%. Pretty hefty amount of critical hit chance in my opinion, and allows us to get more quick bursts as they come off cooldown. So more damage. The Bioshell tier 4. It's an instant cast. Now this is pretty freaking sweet. It's an instant cast when your volatility is between 30 and 70. Okay, so pretty sweet. The tier 8 of this ability affects armor instead of technology resistance. So if I'm reading this right, it would be 15% armor debuff instead of just having one debuff of technology resistance. Now again, I've had this conversation before, but I'm going to have it again. Armor is basically broken down into 3 resistances: physical, magical, and tech. So in this case, instead of affecting one of those resistances, we're affecting all of them. Okay, so again, it's not a bad tier 8 at all, in my opinion. I don't know if, I think it seems like I've seen a lot of stuff say that it's bugged, the tier 8 is, but we're going to assume that upon launch, Carbine will fix this and get it working properly. So we go with it. The tier 4 Boltcaster. Each shell that hits the foe will reduce Bioshell's cooldown by 0.5 seconds. So, again, not a bad ability. When it reduces the cooldown of Bioshell, it's definitely worth it. The tier 8, it's if a foe has no shields, you deal extra physical damage. Pretty freaking sweet. A very good increase to our damage overall. So go ahead and run with that. And that covers assault abilities, utility abilities. The first one we have here is Zap. It's our interrupt. It's a line telegraph. Good range on it. Not much to say. It does physical damage and applies a stun to 5 foes. And I guess while I'm here, when you go with the tier 4, it destroys, instead of 1 interrupt armor, 2. So pretty nice ability. Urgent withdrawal, it's just another way to position ourselves, or kite foes. It's, when you use it, it has 2 ability charges. It knocks you back and it does physical damage to the foes. Applies a snare to them so they can't move as quickly. So it's nice. It can obviously be situational and moved around to other abilities that you feel more pertinent to the situation. So Diminisher bot. This is our other bot in our arsenal. It deals technology damage every 2 seconds to one foe. While active, you access strobe. Strobe deals technology damage to 5 foes every 1 second. And the tooltip's wrong because that doesn't sound right. Every 1 second for 4.5 seconds creates a 25-meter field that applies a snare to all foes within it. And again, another way to snare foes, let us get back to range, or let the tank pick them back up, and we can keep bursting. Again, this is a good ability that could be switched around to another one, like our CC break, for example, shatter impairment. Pretty nice. The one utility ability, or two utility abilities that I don't see myself not running whatsoever, would be volatile injection. Grants a defense and an empower to yourself for 10 seconds. Increases deflect critical hit chance by 10%. But as a DPS guy, we want the empower. Increases critical hit chance by 10%. And the other one I would almost always run is zap. These two seem to be very powerful, especially for DPS. Now you could argue and say that you could use obstruct vision too, but the thing about this ability is it's not really a stun, it just destroys interrupt armor. So if you're running this in your build, make sure you use it quickly and early, because if you use it and all it does is blind the enemy, then in group situations you're not getting the moves. Okay, so you got to make sure that if you do run obstruct vision on your bar, to get it off quickly and before your other folks do. Okay. So, but anywho, that covers the utility abilities and the tiers that I chose. Let's take a look at the amps. What are amps? Amps are similar to skill tree in other MMOs, where you kind of specialize and pick things. To somewhat improve your character as you go along. In this case, being DPS, we're going to focus primarily on the assault tree. But amps, the way you get them is from level 6 straight out of the starter drone to level 50. You get 1 amp per level, and that gives you a total of 45 amps. Now in the past, I've built, using WS base, I've built all the way up to 55 amp points. And the reason for this was because I felt as if, I wanted to give you guys the max build, so you're not trying to figure it out toward the end. But, in order for you to get the last 10 amp points, you have to get something called Elder Gems. Elder Gems are received through daily questing. Also, you'll notice if you have a 50, that as you fill up your experience bar again, you don't hit 51, you just get Elder Gems as you fill them up. And it resets and go over and over and over. But that's basically the amps in a nutshell. One other thing I would note is that you have all these tier 1s in all the trees, and depending on the points you spend, like for example, if I need to spend a certain amount of points in tier 1 assault to get access to tier 2 assault. Same thing with tier 3, I have to spend points in tier 1 assault and tier 2 assault to get to unlock tier 3 assault. Okay. And you'll also notice that, and I've said this in other videos, that the assault, support, and utility trees give access to another ability for us to select if we choose to, and put on our limited action bar. Okay. So, anywho, that basically covers what I wanted to talk about introductory to the amps. Let's dive right into the amps I chose. I go with critical hit chance. 1, 2, and 3 to give a 6% increase to critical hit chance. I go with assault power to increase our assault power by 7.5% of our current maximum. I go with hit severity, which it's about 4 for a 12% increase. And keep in mind, critical hit severity, when we do critical hit, makes for stronger critical hits. So just keep that in mind. A couple of the amps in the tier 2, volatility rising, while between 30 and 70 volatility, gain 7 volatility every 1.5 seconds. So, the engineer is all about managing that volatility to do the most damage possible. Okay. Now, in between this range, if you'll remember back, BioShell is an instant cast too. So, if we can find a way to keep our volatility, in this range, we will, without going too high or too low, then we're going to do optimal damage. So, it's a good amp to keep on our action. I can't talk this morning. But it's a good amp. Okay, moving on. Shrapnel rounds. Landing a hit will deal an additional 13.3% damage every 2 seconds for 6 seconds. Can only occur every 6 seconds. So it's basically a dot. Every time you land a hit, it'll produce a dot that ticks 3 times. And it's not bad. It's not bad. Harmful hits. Landing a critical hit grants some power for 5 seconds, which increases our critical hit chance even more by 9%. Explosive ammo. Landing a critical hit deals an additional 11.1% tech damage to a foe and 4 foes within 50 meters. Can only occur every 1 second. So it's a pretty freaking sweet ability. You're going to be critical hitting like crazy because you have so many amps that increase your critical hit. Like this one here that I just talked about, 9% critical hit increase when you land one. But prior to that, you have 6% critical hit chance percent increase. Good lord. It's pretty crazy the amount of crits you ought to be able to get off as the engineer. But and when I do that with this amp, it affects 4 other foes within 50 meters of that foe that I critical hit. Pretty nice, if you want my opinion. Cruising for a bruising. When your attack is deflected, you gain in power. Can only occur every 10 seconds, but it also increases your critical hit chance by 20% for 5 seconds. So pretty sick, pretty damn sick ability. You can see that our amps are really centered around getting that critical hit up as high as possible, so we can produce as much DPS as possible. So in the hybrid assault support tree, we take the strike through for 3%. So we only have to focus as we get to end game on getting right around 9% to be completely capped. So why not take it? Forceful impact. When your attacks are deflected, you gain in power, which increases your assault and support power by 9.6%. So again, this follows in line and in suit with the Spellslinger. He had an amp similar to this, if I can recall, and I think I took it on both the tanking and, the healing and DPS trees for the Spellslinger. So again, it's a very nice amp. I can't see a reason why you wouldn't want to take it. Cooldowns. Any chance we have to reduce our cooldowns by 15%, we're going to take. Especially in the case of the engineer, where a lot of our cooldowns are anywhere from, I think it's like 10 to 20 seconds long. And we don't have an auto attack set up, as you can see here. Well, our pulse blast, so to speak. So any chance we can get our cooldowns off cooldown and use it as a DPS increase. So of course we're going to take those. Reckless Dash. Again, people have, including myself, have not really seen just how useful this is. Before I was talking about how if you're in between 30 and 70 volatility, you can get an instant cast bio shell off. So, a lot of people have said, well, you double dash and you're already at 40 volatility with this amp. And then you can instant cast your bio shell and go right into a rotation or a priority and keep your volatility between 30 and 70. You're also gaining more volatility. So, it's pretty freaking sweet amp, okay? Um, I definitely didn't give it its due. But, I am now taught and st- stand corrected that it's a very good amp, okay? Um, so anyway, that covers our first build, abilities, tiers, and amps. Even talked a little bit about the rotation slash priority. Um, in our next video, we're going to touch base on more of a AoE multi-target build. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like what you saw, follow me on Twitch. My username is BigDogLB. If you're a YouTube user, hit that like button and give me some feedback in the comment section below. Um, Again, constructive feedback is always wanted. If you're going to be a dumbass, don't put nothing down there. Um, you know, because I won't even read it. And more than likely it'll get deleted anyhow. So, anywho, this is Luke from Guild Umbra signing off, and we'll see you next time as we dive into our next build.